You can definitely incentivize certain behavior. You can definitely cause trauma that prevents somebody from going a direction.
The same treatment for one kid that might crush their spirit might have the exact opposite effect on a different child. The environment for a young child in particular is directly correlated to how healthy you are. I give up. I was just talking with my wife about this too, because there was a video we watched. They were talking about, I don't think he framed it correctly, but he was talking about how nurture is just how we bring out the stuff that's already in you. Like the environment, like you cannot, and there's a discussion to be had here too, but like, can you change somebody by by creating an environment to force them or whatever? Or is it just a matter of people giving them a healthy environment versus an unhealthy environment to help a child maximize?
What do you mean by change people? Because I think that's where we're going to get hung up. I think you and I are
right. And this is where he was basically saying like, you cannot like force your child to become a certain way by like willing them to. And there's a lot of people in the comments like, well, if you do this and this, and when you look at the comments, it's really clear in all the comments, all the examples they're giving are just, that's just the environment that you're creating for the child to develop in. You're not actually changing them. You're just making the environment a certain way. And that can be negative or positive. That can be like creating a really supportive environment or a really harsh environment or really authoritarian. Like that affects who they become. But it's not as simple as like a directed change. You're not like, if you have a highly authoritarian parenting style, that will affect your child and who they become, but it won't necessarily affect them in the way that you want it to. You're not able to like go in and program them and pull the right levels in your environment to make your child turn out the way you want them to. They will respond to the environment that you provide them. And that's largely based on the personality traits and genetics that they've already been born with. Mm-hmm. And the nurture part that's what nurturing is. Are you cultivating these traits? Are you helping to encourage those traits? Or are you discouraging those traits? It doesn't necessarily work as cleanly as that. Anyone who's done gardening, you cultivate a plant and it just doesn't want to grow. You can try and trim back weeds and they just keep growing back no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. So the nature versus nurture, I think we think of it as, this is the part I have no control over because it's in them. And this is the part I have control over because I'm the parent. But the reality is, I think at least more nuanced than that to say like, you can't put something into your child that wasn't already there. You can just teach them how to maximize the things that are there. Mm-hmm. Or try your best. I mean, really, like I said, like you can't even control, like you can force a child up to a certain age to do certain things, mm-hmm. but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do that once they reach a certain age. They will do what they want. And so like you can force them to play piano and they might develop that skill, but they may come to hate playing piano and never want to touch it again after they are able to willfully just decide they don't want to anymore. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess this is an interesting line of thought. I kind of have a so what reaction, right? Because for me, I think human beings are very moldable, especially children. They're very moldable. Do they have their own personality traits? Yes. Do they have things that they're naturally a little bit more interested in? Yes. Do they have areas where they're a little more talented, a little bit less talented? Yes. The whole, can you put something into them that's not already there? Or
take something out for that matter.
Oh, well, Okay, let's cover the first one first. Can you put something into them that's not already there? It depends how you're defining it. Can you bring them to something that they would never have found? Yes. Right? Can you cause them to go down a path that they never would have gone down? Absolutely. But what do you mean by put something in there? I mean, that sounds to me like definition squabbling, which is fine. Can you remove something from them that is in there? You can absolutely discourage and suppress it. You can. And sometimes you can discourage and suppress it for a long period of time. And sometimes you can actually, forgive the turn of phrase, beat it out of them.
But that's just you manipulating the environment that they're developing in. That's what that is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You're not doing that. You're creating an environment that discourages that or encourages that.
Right.
But it's something that is like the child is still developing,
right,
independent of your control to some degree.
Right. And
because the same treatment for one kid that might crush their spirit or take their desire to do art away from them, for instance, might have the exact opposite effect on a different child.
Right.
The same stimulus. You don't have that kind of control necessarily as a parent. And like he was talking about it in this context of like, do what you can to like create a healthy environment and raise your children, but you can't live and die based on the choices they make and how they turn out because you don't have that much control over how they turn
okay.
out.
So that's the point. That's the purpose.
I think that was really more his point. But.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I would just say that in terms of the overall framing of that entire device there, the framing is such that it's definitional. And because the framing is such that it's definitional, focusing on that is unhelpful, but focusing on the so what might be helpful, right? And so, yes, I agree. Good parents who give their children the absolute best that they possibly can are still going to have children that don't choose what the parents want them to choose once they have freedom to choose something different. And this is amplified in our atomized culture, right? Where we don't have clans and we don't have a situation where there's a single patriarch or matriarch that directs everyone and heavily punishes anyone who diverges, right? Culturally, we're much more atomized, we're much more individualistic. And so those differences, those contrarians come out much more frequently. And we don't value conformity in the same way. So I would, you still have divergence in these highly conformist cultures. It's less often, right? And that alone should tell us something about the environment giving you a different degree of conformity. And if you get different results at a societal level by having different expectations, is that a societal, cultural thing? Or there are people who would argue that there's some genetic components to, certain folks are much harder to control than other folks, and that there's a genetic component to it, and it's brain development, right?
I would argue that it definitely is, because I think that plays into the personality traits that we see.
Yeah. So there's definitely nature and nurture both at play here. Yeah, I don't know, but can you put something in? You can help somebody find something that they would have never discovered on their own.
Sure.
You can definitely incentivize certain behavior. You can definitely cause trauma,
right?
That prevents somebody from going a direction.
Right. Well, again, like I said, like I think people think of nature versus nurture of like, these are the things that are inherent and these are the things I can control. And I feel like it's a poor framing of that, because it's like, again, to the garden, you have a plant. You can control how much water you give it, how much sunlight it gets. Like there's certain things you can control, but that's environmental. the plant itself doesn't change. It can't produce a different fruit
Right.
than the kind of plant that it is. It can't produce a different flower. We think, oh, nurture, I'm going to create this flower into how I want it to be, versus you can't change what kind of flower it is. That's the nature. All you can do is provide it the environment to make it grow and flourish as best as possible. And like you said, show it new experiences, try and teach the flower to grow. You can train it. You can train plants to grow onto a trellis of some kind or something, where you can train it to grow a certain way, or like bonsai trees, they'll put wires on it to try and help it grow in certain shapes even. But you can't change what kind of plant it is. You can't change the stuff that's at a fundamental level.
Right.
And that's nurture, is that, like, you're not putting anything new into it. You're not taking things out of it. You're just affecting. You can have a plant that you just cut off all the leaves. Every time a new leaf sprouts, you just cut it. It's not going to be healthy. But that's not changing the nature of the plant. Right. That when you stop cutting the leaves, it's going to want to grow another leaf. And so it's a more complicated interplay. And even though nurture is a significant part in the kind of person that we turn out to be, I think that we have more control over the nurture side of things. And it's more of a, like I said, like a plant. You're not doing the growing. You're not causing it to grow. It's growing on its own. And it has its own genetic information of what it wants to do. And you just do your best to try and create an environment that is going to help it to flourish. But
yeah,
I think,
I see your point.
I just think it frees parents up a lot. Like I said, it frees you up from feeling like as much of a failure. Like, all you can control is the environment. And the environment for a young child in particular is directly correlated to how healthy you are as a parent, as an adult, as a person. So the best thing you can do to raise a healthy child, especially from a young age, is to get yourself healthier.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that same gal whose videos you were showing me earlier, she talks about the most important thing for a man to do. I think it's her. The most important thing for a man to do when raising children is to take care of their mother. Right? He has a role with the kids, but taking care of mom is the most important, because then all of her energy can go into what she needs to focus on. And by giving her what she needs, she can then give more. And that's tremendously important in the first few years of life. Yeah. And then it's nuanced. It changes over time. The other thing about creating the environment is how much time do you really have with your kids, which is something we've talked about before, right? And if you are, if you are in a position where both of you work 40 plus and your kids are in daycare, and then they're in preschool, and then they're in kindergarten, and then they're in elementary school, and they're also going to after school care, you don't have very much time with them. And you're likely to be very tired when you do have time with them. So the level of involvement, the level of intentionality, the difficulty of that just goes up so much. It's really, really hard. I'm not saying that the only answer is that, just quit your job and spend all day with your kids, because that's not real. Most people can't do that, right? And so
it's unfortunate, because that's how we were.
Yeah.
Before, like, the 1940s and 50s, men worked a lot more from home. They were on a farm somewhere.
Yeah.
Or
they were at war and gone for months at a time.
Sometimes,
right?
Well, sure, but they weren't professional soldiers as much throughout history.
Right. Or they worked on a ship and they were, gone for a long time.
Yeah, but that's a small percentage of people. There's mostly people who are creating the goods for those ships. That's
Mhm.
my point is that like people talk about like, oh, women are in the house and men go off to work. That was a very narrow window of time that was a thing.
Yeah.
Most of history, the men were on working and the women were working, and it was mostly in the house or in another person's, like doing another person's crops. And then
Right.
they would bring their son once they were old enough. They would come and help them work in the other person's fields
Mhm.
or their own fields. It was a group effort to maintain and survive. It was, I think people take for granted how hard it was to survive back then.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's where a lot of Anglo names come from too, where essentially the children were raised in the home of the person doing the job and therefore took on the job themselves. And so some of it is, historically, if your name's Smith, you were probably a blacksmith, or somebody in your family was a blacksmith.
Sure.
And that was passed from primarily father to son, over time. And just the act of, I am the smithy and my kid is here and helping me. And, I am a farmer and my kid is there and helping me, and, all of those moving parts. And that's where you get, farmer, smith, baker, hunter. Yeah. I have joked before that if you were a baker, you were a pillar of the society, right? Because people came to you for bread. And they would, you'd get the grain ground up and you'd turn it into something that was a staple for the people, right? And your child was also going to be a baker. You could say that they're born and bred.
I give up.